Hey, I'm Anna. If you've done IVF in Kitchener-Waterloo, there's a moment people don't warn you about. It comes after the positive beta, after careful phone calls, after the clinic who has held you through years of blood work, ultrasounds, monitoring appointments, and hope has held you and says some version of, congratulations, you're discharged. If you're graduating your IVF clinic, you might expect joy, or relief, celebration. And while we have some of that, many of us also feel fear. It's a feeling of being untethered and wondering, after all these years of my clinic holding me, who's holding me now? If this is you, I want you to know something right away. Nothing has gone wrong. This emotional crash after such a big experience in your life is normal. It's not a sign that you're ungrateful or anxious or doing anything wrong. It's a completely understandable nervous system response to a change in your care. And when I say a change, I mean a massive transition. Let's talk about why this stage feels so scary and what actually changes if you're someone in Kitchener-Waterloo who needs to find care after you graduate an IVF clinic. In this video, I want to teach you how to build a support team that makes you feel held, still, all the way from pregnancy through your birth experience and to postpartum. Let's first normalize the way you're feeling. A lot of people tell me they have fears that come up when they leave their clinics. Fears like something bad will happen if I'm not being constantly monitored. And that makes sense. Fertility care is high touch by necessity. And when things are going well, it's hard to trust our bodies. It's hard to trust that without getting new information every single day, confirmation that things are going well, that our betas are going up the way they need to, that baby's heartbeat is still there. It's really, really hard to walk through this journey without that constant monitoring you're used to. So give yourself grace there, first of all. After a successful IVF transfer, we enter a new phase of pregnancy that maybe you've never entered before. And it's actually a phase that includes grief. You are leaving behind a structure that kept you emotionally regulated through one of the most intense experiences of your life. You're not just moving on. You're letting go. You're letting go of a very important team of people and schedules and things that you could expect. And grief comes along with that, and so does fear. It's hard to go from daily appointments, constant monitoring, and a team who knows you well by your first name to transition to a clinic where maybe you've met with this person before, maybe they're new to you. Very short appointments, waiting for referrals, and having to tell your story over and over and over again to new people. It gets exhausting explaining why you might be high risk, what the nuances in your numbers are, when you're seeing somebody new for all of your different appointments. This is not a failure in you regulating your nervous system. Not at all. What this is a mismatch between what your nervous system expects and needs, truthfully, and what the system can offer you. So let's talk about what your care might look like after you graduate from an IVF clinic in Kitchener-Waterloo. Once you've graduated your IVF clinic, your care typically transitions to the hospital-based maternity care system. In KW, this means either working with an obstetrician or OB, or a midwife if you're eligible. Here's a step that often gets missed by families who are graduating from a fertility clinic. You need to reach out to your family doctor to get a referral to an OB early on in your pregnancy. This is not something your fertility clinic will do for you. It's your responsibility to line up maternity care. Your fertility clinic specializes in helping you get and stay pregnant, but they don't specialize in making sure that you have care throughout pregnancy and for delivering your baby. In KW, you can reach out to your family doctor and ask for a referral to a specific OB, but you need to know that the care at the hospital for your actual delivery will not necessarily be from that obstetrician, We have an on-call rotating schedule of obstetricians at Grand River Hospital, and so the person who's on call will be the person who delivers your baby. For someone who's gone through fertility care, where you're used to familiar faces and people knowing your story, it can feel very unsettling to have one provider for your prenatal appointments, maybe multiple depending on the care model of the clinic that you're with for an OB, and then somebody completely different who might show up when you're having your baby. This is where people typically turn towards midwifery care, if you're eligible. Midwives will follow you throughout your pregnancy, during your delivery, and postpartum. They'll do home visits to visit you and make sure that you're doing really well. Their visits are typically much longer than obstetrician visits. OBs tend to be about 15 minutes, while midwives are around 45 minutes. And they'll still be available to you as a support person, even if your care gets escalated to a higher risk category, such as needing to be transitioned to an obstetrician for a C-section during your delivery. Your midwife will still remain in the room as a familiar face. Now, while there's wonderful things about midwifery care, not everybody is eligible, and not everyone wants a midwife. So there's a couple different ways that you can build your support team so that you still have that sense of someone in the room knowing who you are, knowing your story, and having that continuity of care in your home, someone who knows you prenatally, who's at your birth, and their postpartum to help you with sleep, breastfeeding, mental health, all of those kinds of things. So here's how you can build that team. First of all, still reach out to midwives. Don't automatically assume that you're ineligible. You never know. And if that's the kind of care that you're looking for, midwives aren't necessarily the only option for you. This is where doula support becomes especially powerful. If you're not eligible to have a midwife, but you're looking for that continuity of care, or if you just want an OB for the peace of mind and you're expecting that maybe you're high risk or you're going to need further medical interventions than a midwife can provide you, having a doula plus an OB is a really magical combination. When you're working with an OB, your visits are only 10 to 15 minutes long, and they're focusing on making sure that you and your baby are safe. Now, this doesn't let you have any of that time to ask those questions that might be lingering in the back of your mind that are not directly related to your baby's safety, or to let you do any emotional processing. And we know that there's a huge amount of emotional processing that we need to do, especially when we're pregnant after infertility. This is where it's really helpful to have a midwife or another care provider like a doula who can sit with you, who knows the system, and who can help you feel like your fears are normal and help you process those emotionally. They can also help you plan for your birthing experience so that we can take those cares into consideration and make sure that you have the things that you need in order to stay emotionally safe throughout that experience. Doulas also come with you to the hospital for your delivery. I will come whenever you need me, even in early labor, even while you're still at home, and help you to feel safe and cared for and help you navigate those first contractions. If you need an induction, which is really, really common, I'll meet you at the hospital and help you get through those contractions until it's safe for you to get an epidural, if that's something you're looking for. I'll stay with you throughout your entire labor, and I'll be there for a few hours after your baby is born to help you establish that first breastfeed and help you feel comfortable with the plans for your postpartum recovery. I'll also be there to support your partner. Partners don't have anybody else in the system who's looking out for them to make sure that they've had a granola bar when they're so focused on supporting you that they've forgotten to eat for 10 hours, to make sure that they have somebody who can be with you if your baby needs to be in the NICU. That way you don't need to be alone. I can either support your partner or you in that situation. There's more people who are looking out for you if you have a doula. Now let's talk about one piece of your support team that is especially important if you've gone through an infertility journey that gets overlooked by most of your medical providers who are focused on your pregnancy, not your postpartum. Let's talk about breastfeeding and lactation. Many people who experience especially unexplained infertility experience problems with lactation, whether that's low milk supply or something else that might be going on. Low milk supply is very common when we have a hormone imbalance, and sometimes Our care providers don't know how to address that because they simply don't have enough experience and training in lactation specifically. They're able to support you with some of those really basic things like learning how to latch, different breastfeeding positions, but someone like a labor and delivery nurse or a midwife or a doctor might not have the specialized knowledge they need to help address low milk supply in the case of a hormonal imbalance following infertility. And that's where I'm happy to come in as an IBCLC candidate and help you really work towards those breastfeeding goals and work with your body. Breastfeeding support is another gap that many families who have OBs experience. And that's because breastfeeding is something that we simply can't address in just a 15-minute appointment. We need a longer amount of time to watch babies' behavior, to wait for them to be hungry, and for us to get multiple chances at trying to feed your baby and seeing what that looks like for them. We also need time for emotional processing to make you feel safe and held throughout this process because breastfeeding is so vulnerable. For those of us who have experienced infertility, breastfeeding, if it's not going perfectly, can feel like yet another way our body has failed us, which is re-traumatizing and brings up all sorts of different emotions. These are things that can't be addressed in simply a 15-minute visit. It's not possible. And on top of that, many obstetricians or family doctors don't have the expertise they need in order to address these complex feeding challenges, especially when we look at things like low supply after infertility. This is something I see all the time when I'm seeing lactation clients because lactation and fertility both rely on very specific hormone balances. It's something we don't talk about very often, but infertility can be somewhat of a predictor of either low milk supply or other breastfeeding challenges. And so I'm really passionate about making sure that these families who are coming from an infertility story are informed and have the support they need in order to accomplish their breastfeeding goals. There are lots of things that we can do to increase your milk supply and make sure that breastfeeding is going well, but your doctor might not necessarily know what those things are, or they might be looking to different things that might work for someone else, but not someone with your hormone profile, with your vitamins and minerals in the balance they're in. So often we need to look towards lactation consultants who have specific experience in supporting people after infertility journeys to help you get your milk supply up and make sure that breastfeeding is going well. And that's an area that I'm very happy to fill in as a doula who's training as an IBCLC. Your next phase of care needs to include medical support from either an OB or a midwife, and you should get a referral from your family doctor in that case to make sure that you get on the list for OBs early. It should include someone who can provide relational care, whether that's a midwife, a doula, a really great therapist or parenting coach who can follow you through this journey. You need someone who can take care of you emotionally to help you process all of these fears and expectations and complicated emotions that might come up. And you need someone who can provide practical guidance for your birth and postpartum. You need somebody who can teach you how to take care of your baby, who you can call when you don't know what to do. Above all else, know that you're not meant to do this alone. If this transition feels scary, it's because it matters. And you deserve care that honors everything it took for you to get here. I'm wishing you all the best and all the support as you start to write this new chapter of your journey. Take care.